Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of different decks to choose from. Most of the time you see decks with meta relevancy like Sword Soul or Leerlusk. However, I want to showcase some decks that aren't quite meta. These decks most likely won't top a YCS, but they're funny, nostalgic, or just straight up jank. Each month I'll take a different one of these decks and try to make them as good as possible for what they are. But for this week, this is I built Cyberse Clock FTK so you don't have to. Hello and welcome back to another episode of I Built Blank So You Don't Have To. Last time we played a very nostalgic deck in the form of Morphtronics, but this week I have a deck that's more modern. Code Talkers is a very cool deck that I enjoy and honestly love. I really just can't get enough of this deck. It's got a very solid going first combo and can play through Disruption like no other. And while I think that deck is great the way it is, there's another version of this deck that's not quite as good, but a little bit funnier. I present to you Cyberse Clock Dragon FTK. This deck's main win condition is link climbing through your entire extra deck and then fusing your entire graveyard full of link monsters into a Cyberse Clock Dragon, which reads as follows. When this card is fusion summoned, you can send cards from the top of the deck to your graveyard, equal to the total link rating of the materials used for this card's fusion summon, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, other monsters you control cannot attack. Also, this card gains 1000 attack for each card sent to the graveyard by this effect. Basically, after we're done with our combo, the entirety of our deck is in the graveyard. This means we can play one copy of Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, one copy of Starliege Seifert, and one copy of Catapult Turtle. Once we milled the whole deck, we can use Starliege Seifert's effect to add back the copy of Legionnaire, which can banish 3 lights from the graveyard to special summon itself, and then Chaos Dragon Legionnaire's light effect triggers on summon, which brings back Catapult Turtle. Catapult Turtle allows you to tribute a monster on the field to burn for half of the attack that that monster had on the field, which, simply put, allows you to tribute the Cyberse Clock Dragon and then burn your opponent for around 12,000 damage. This is an extremely janky FTK that requires you to play 5 bricks just to pull it off, and it is in no way competitively viable or good in any sense of the word, but it is so funny when you pull it off. So without further ado, let's get into the matches and show you just how bad, but funny, this deck is. Round 1, I'm playing against my friend Carter, who is on Brave Plunder Patrol. They go first and don't see any plunder cards, so they end on 2 back row and a Griffin Rider. Passing it back to us, we have a good going second hand, but the funny part about this deck is if you're not going first, all the deck really is just Code Talkers. Despite Carter imperming the Lady Debug and dropletting an access code, this deck actually has roots to make a second access code thanks to Codec and Scripton. I'm able to actually crack this board while co-link a firewall to a second access code, which cleans up game 1. Game 2, I had no idea how to side for Carter's deck, as all I really saw last game was the Brave Engine and Staples. They're able to get to an end board of 1 set card, a Totally Awesome, and Blackbeard, and honestly, I always forget what Plunder Patrol cards do, so I just try to play as much as I can, and I get destroyed because of it. On to game 3. Game 3, we actually opened cracked. Now we just have to not get drolled. Okay, Lingerubo Pass sounds good to me. Carter doesn't actually kill me though, and opts to just put up some disruption for our next turn, and since I drew a very particular amount of bricks, I can actually do something pretty funny.
Trinity's gonna like debug again and then get
Cynet Fusion!
Oh,
Bro, we're just gonna hard summon Cock Wyvern? Or...
Outside of that though, I just get droplet on access code and lose from there. Round 2, I'm playing against Lane, who was on Lunalite Tri-Brigade. Lane ashes me on the Cynet Mining, so knowing that I'm going to die on the next turn, all I do is just normal summon a Sea Archiver and pass. And we do in fact perish. Game 2, we get drolled, and man, I just want to do the funny FTK, man. We do end up putting up a board though, putting Ibly on their field forces them to crash it in the battle phase, but Firewall's bounce effect is enough since Luna Tri has enough ways to special summon monsters that we just get snowballed from there and lose. Round 3, we're up against my friend Jarrett, who's on Fire King Tri-Brigade? They put up a standard Tri-Brigade board of Revolt, another set back row, and a 3 material Apollosa. I'm able to easily force summon this disruption with Link Slayer and Lady Debug, which I could then force Revolt by threatening to beat over the Apollosa in the battle phase, but outside of that I can't do much because my last card in hand isn't an extender. If it was, I could have just FTK'd them in the main phase too, but since I couldn't, I just went for an access code and popped the rest of their field. But sadly, I knew they had plays on the next turn because they searched Fractal with Nerval, and that was just that. Game 2, I open up the FTK line, and oh my god, I actually might be able to resolve it. I get Veilored on my transcodes effect, but that's fine since I had enough gas to actually push through and get to a beefy Cyberse Clock Dragon. Game 3, they put up a similar board to Game 1, being a set revolt and a 3 material Apollosa, but I'm easily able to break it, and in main phase 2 I start trying to do the FTK, but I realized very soon that I sided out the FTK for going second cards. So instead, I make it into a very scuffed board of Firewall killing to 2, and thankfully it gets us there. So overall, we only took one match today, but this deck is so funny. If you like this deck, I would honestly recommend normal Code Talkers, because that deck is like this one, but it doesn't play 5 bricks and is honestly way better. Let me know what you thought about this deck in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!